Good evening and welcome to this live Ask Me Anything About Property Investing with myself, Saj Hussain. I'm here every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. to answer your property investing questions. I've been investing in property for about 15 years now, huge amount of knowledge and experience. Hey, look, here's the thing. I don't know everything there is to know about property, but I have a lot of experience and knowledge which I'm more than happy to share with you to help you ultimately get further faster in your property investing journey. So regardless of which platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, make sure you put your comment, your question in the comment section to get that answer this evening. Now, we'll work through them in the order that they appear. Don't leave it to the very end. Often people do, they'll leave it to the very last minute, then complain that I haven't been able to answer a question, because we won't have enough time to answer all the questions. We'll just start working through in the order that we've got them and answer them for you. So if you've got a question you'd like me to answer this evening, make sure you get it in nice and early so that we can get it answered for you. This is now episode number 45. And if you're here for the first time, that means you've missed 44 episodes. But hey, don't worry. They're all on YouTube. So you can go onto my channel, The Saj Hussain, and you can find them there and go through those at your leisure. So let's get started with that first question this evening, and let's answer that for you. So our first question, if we just pop that up on the screen for me. First one's from Sagan. Hi Saj, will lenders and solicitors request full deposit in account at the start of mortgage application? Say 25% deposit is short by a few £1,000s with the guarantee of making it ready by completion. So Sagan, great question. So when you're applying for a mortgage and you're making a purchase of the property, normally your solicitor will ask for the funds just before you complete. So you don't need to have the money in your solicitor's account before then. However, your solicitor will ask you where the money's come from, because they need to do the anti-money laundering checks. They need to just make sure that the money's all kind of sound and legit. And sometimes the lenders will have certain questions as well that they'll want your solicitor to answer. For example, where's the money come from? How long has it been in the account, etc., etc. So some of it's to satisfy the solicitor, some of it's to satisfy the lender. Now, depending on when you're making your application, when you're going to complete on the purchase, you could let your solicitor know that you're expecting £2,000 or £3,000 from somewhere else. So when you send your statements in, your lender, for example, during the application will want to see the deposit. Your solicitor will ask about the deposit, and then the funds don't actually need to be sent till the very end. But they do want to see you've got the money. So it's a case of having an explanation of what's going on and how that's going to happen. And remember, from the point that you make that mortgage application to the point you complete on the property and get the keys, that could be several months. Sometimes it could be a few weeks, but generally speaking, it's probably going to be a couple of months, maybe 3 months from the time of start to finish. So bear that in mind as well. So Sigyn, I hope that helps. Let's get our next question on the screen. That's from Kevin on YouTube. Hi Saj, how do you analyze costs for refurb? What steps should I take in the buying process and afterwards to avoid potential issues, i.e. rules about working with builders, your experiences, please? So thank you for that question, Kevin. So I'm straining a little bit trying to read the screen over there. A slightly different setup today. In fact, let me know your thoughts in terms of, does the layout seem to work out better doing the lives from here, from this office? Now, when we're working on a project and we're looking to do a renovation, we want to get some idea of cost. What's it going to cost us to do that particular job? Now, this will vary massively depending on how much work you want to do to the property, how extensive that refurb is going to be, and also the kind of finish and the quality of finish that you want to do as well. So what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, the electrics. You could do a full rewire on the property versus patch up and repair some of the electrics to make them to today's regs and standards. For instance, you could add on and add more sockets, for example, to to what's already there. So your electrician will quote you different amounts depending on how much work you want to do. Now, let's say you're going to do a full rewire on the property, and the work on the walls means that somebody has to chase out the plaster to be able to make space for that cable to run down that wall as well. And somebody needs to patch it up and fix that up as well. So who's going to be responsible for that? How is that going to work? Or are you looking for electricians to put trunking down the walls to be able to run that cable through? So all these things will affect the price that you're paying. So I use that as an example because there's various different scenarios that could play out there in terms of your electrician. So one of the things that you want to do nice and early is get clear in terms of what works exactly you want done on the property. So I just finished my my inner circle call. My inner circle is my mentoring group that I have a group call with on a Monday evening. We were just doing a session there, and one of the guys was also talking about the works they're doing on the property, stripped it back to brick, and we were talking about exactly these things about planning out nice and early exactly what you want, so that when you're speaking to builders and other tradespeople about getting quotes, you can be clear exactly what it is you want, so they can quote exactly for the same thing, which also then means when you're comparing quotes, you're comparing like for like, because the information you've given means it's interpreted fairly accurately rather than it being vague and it's open to many different interpretations, which means you end up with quotes that you can't really compare because they're not like for like. In terms of the exact amounts, what I would do is I'd speak to various tradespeople to get an idea of costing. For example, you've got central heating system, you've got windows that are going to go in, replacement windows, you've got the electric. So these things are easy enough to ring around and get a ballpark idea. It's not going to give an exact figure until somebody comes and looks, measures it all up, works it out, and see how much time and materials needs to go into it, so they can quote you on that job. If you're going to project manage it, remember you need to work around how these things are going to happen. For example, going back to electrician we were just talking about, if the walls have been chased out, somebody needs to come back and plaster up afterwards as well. Who's going to be responsible for that? So just managing all these things. So in essence, in terms of the figures, I would get various different quotes, and I would also speak to other people who are already doing jobs like this in your area, other people that are refurbing, and see what is it that they're paying for their projects as well. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of sort of in a live session like this. There's only so much that I can give you, but hopefully I've given you some pointers in terms of moving forward. So let's get a next question on the screen there. Khalid will have a look. So whichever platform you're watching, if you want me to answer your question, make sure you put it in the comment section. We'll do our very best to answer that. We're live on various different platforms, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. And remember, we're here every Monday, 8:30 p.m. just to help you with your property investing. So this next one is also on YouTube. Toslav, my apologies if I pronounce that incorrectly. I'm terrible when it comes to pronunciations. Hi, Saj, with social housing, would you agree to get paid guaranteed rent for the house or get paid per tenant? Would you use rent to rent? And also, how long should the contract be? Well, this really depends on what kind of arrangement you've got, how you've got it set up. So the way we're running our social housing at the moment is something that's new. We haven't really been doing this before. Most of our HMOs are professional lets. That's been our core market, something we've been doing for about 10 years plus, in fact. And what we started looking at recently is how we can get more involved in social housing, and we're really dipping our toe in that. So what we're doing is we partner with somebody who's delivering the care, the support side within this particular model. And what we're doing is providing the accommodation all ready and good to go. And some of the properties are not even ours. We're just rent to renting them effectively. What that means is we've taken on a property from a landlord, releasing it from the landlord. We're then setting you up to get it ready to run in the social housing way. And then we're working with a partner who's going to deliver the actual day-to-day stuff and the running and the operation and the management of that property. They'll find the tenants, they'll get the applications running in terms of getting the claims in, to get the funds in. They'll work with the housing association stroke registered provider to make sure it's all running and operating correctly, and then we're doing a profit share. That's essentially how we're doing that. So there's many different ways that it can be set up. I'm just having another look at your question to make sure that I've understood what you're asking. So I guess the other part of what you're asking is whether we would give the property to somebody else on a guaranteed rent, or whether we'd want to be involved in terms of how that's being run. And I think this really just depends on how much work is it you're willing to do. From my point of view, if you like, if we're providing the property, it's not that different from the sort of property investing that we do. Property goes somewhere, tenants are they're paying rent. Whether it's a management company, a letting agency, we're doing it ourselves, whatever it might be, that's a fairly standard model. Now, if, for example, we get involved in social housing and then there's provisions for care and support as well, now it's a completely different business. Now we're no longer talking just about providing accommodation. We're talking about setting up a whole different business to be able to support this group of people that are going to be the people living in that property. So this is, first of all, I think it's really important to differentiate. These are two different parts of the business. One is the accommodation, and one is the provision of the support. And then which parts of those do you want to be involved in? For us right now, we've chosen just to do the accommodation bit whilst we're working with a partner who's delivering that, and we'll review it going forward and see how we want to pursue that. For me, I really like to understand how something works, really drill down to the details, make sure I fully understand the mechanics of how something works before I look to increase and grow and scale that business, because I want to build it on solid foundation so it can really grow. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. Let's get our next question on the screen. Next one's from Instagram. So if you're watching on Instagram, thank you there. So Khalid's just flashed that up on the screen for me. The young developer is asking, for someone who's just beginning his journey, how can I engage people on social media and increase my base? This is a really good question. If you're just starting out in property and you're brand new, then you're thinking about, how do I create a connection with people on social media when you haven't really got the experience and track record? So if you've been doing property a while, as I said, been about 15 years in property, and you already got lots of connections in property, you're doing lots of things in property that you can show people. But if you're brand new, you don't have this. You don't have the experience. You don't have all that track record to be able to share. However, what you will have, hopefully, is the enthusiasm and the energy to want to be able to grow and build this business. And part of property is being able to go out, look at properties, assess them, analyze, do the due diligence, sketch up plans, see how it's going to work, what the numbers going to look like, how you're going to make a profit on that, what's the returns going to be. But this is all stuff that you can share with other people as part of your journey. So what you're doing, you're not saying, hey, look, these are all the things that I've done. You haven't necessarily got the case studies. For example, I share on YouTube different projects I'm running right now. You don't have that. But what you do have is the properties that you're looking at. So you can talk about, here's a property I'm looking at. This is what we're looking to do with it. Here's how the numbers are going to look on this particular deal. And what you're then doing is building up visibility and some credibility by actually just being out there and sharing this stuff. So what you're doing is sharing your journey as you're moving forward in property investing, as opposed to taking the stance of, hey, I'm an expert, I've been doing this a number of years, look what I can do, you can come work with me. And what will happen is some people will resonate with you, they'll see what you're doing, they'll see the energy, the enthusiasm you put into it, they might start a conversation with, and then you can take it from there in terms of, whether you look to work with somebody as a potential investor, funder, whatever it might be going forward. So I hope that helps. I'll give you a few pointers there. So the next question we have is on Facebook from Saj. As you know, Design Space 2 Limited, us, are fantastic at gaining planning. Where do you think, based on experience, your network should be looking to capitalize on this in the coming year? So just for a bit of context, Jason, friend of mine, and works at Design Space 2, which is an architectural practice. We've also done quite a bit of work for me as well. So definitely go and check those guys out there. Now, I guess the question is, where's the opportunity going forward? So when you look at 2021, what's going to be happening in the property market, there's going to be a lot of change. So the stuff that we've been doing now, we've been doing 2019, 2018, I suspect is going to be very different to what we'll be doing in 2021. So for instance, as the environment changes, for example, unemployment starts to increase, people start losing their jobs. You'll find the type of tenants that you have might change as well. So, for example, if you just do working professionals as your core tenant base, and someone loses their job, they don't necessarily fall into that bracket of a working professional, and now they might be in receipt of benefits. It might be temporary, but now you have to understand how that model works, just so that you can continue to really collect rent on that property. Because if they don't know how they're going to claim the housing element of universal credit to be able to pay you, it's your job to be able to understand it and support them, so to make sure you get paid. So an example of how things might change. And commercial properties can be very different. So our office is on the high street here, and where we are in South Birmingham, and this is a very busy high street we're on here. And last year, if you'd had a walk down this high street, you'd barely see a to-let board. That's because the properties are let very quickly around here. It's a very desirable area to have commercial space. However, right now, today, if we walk up and down this street, there are a number of shops closing down, businesses that are leaving the high street. And they're not. Some of these are quite big businesses, like Argos, for example, just down here, they're closing up, and you've got some smaller businesses as well, and quite a mixture of things. So that means the high street model is changing completely. Then it's about repurposing those properties. So come back to Jason's questions about thinking about how you can add value. So planning is changing completely. There's a new consultation that just last week has come out, where the government is asking us for feedback in terms of what we think about the new planning classifications I have. So a lot of property planning classifications have been reclassified in September into new categories, many of those in what's called Class E. And within Class E, the government are now talking about permitted development rights, being able to change that to residential use. So what does that mean? That means you're taking a property that before you would have to go through planning permission to change its use to be able to use it, for example, apartments, and now you'd be able to go straight to that using permitted development or prior approval. This is where you need a good architect on your side who understands this, who understands the changes, and can help you add value to projects. And that's ultimately what it's about. There's two ways you're going to make money when you're buying property. One is either you buy it cheap right from the offset, so you've got equity on day one, and number two is you add value to that property, and that's where a great architect is going to help you add value to your particular project. So let's get our next question on the screen. Next question on Twitter from Shaz. Thanks for the show. Well, you're most welcome. Thank you for being here. Hey, look, I'm only here every Monday at 8:30 p.m. because you're here to ask the questions, and I'm happy to answer them for you. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And remember, if you're here for the first time, I do these on a Monday evening. I also have a video that goes out on a Wednesday and a Friday as well, really around helping you grow and build your property investing business and to help you progress in your property investing journey. So make sure you check those out on my YouTube channel. It's the Saj Hussain. And you'll find lots of great content on there. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, you'd like to learn more about, then look, send me a message, ping me a message on social media or whichever platform you're watching on right now. And enough people ask for that, I'm quite happy to do the videos for you. So prior to lockdown, we used to have the monthly meeting in Birmingham every month. And I know many people watch this used to come to that 100+ people there pretty much every month. So a packed out meeting. But hey, that hasn't happened since February, and I don't know when the next one's going to start. So I'll be using that time and putting my energy to be able to help people in this particular way. So let's get our next question up. Next one's from Catherine on YouTube. Hi, Saf. Hey, it's Saj, but I'll take a Saf. Hi, Saf. How to avoid getting a gazumped selling direct to a vendor? You can't really part of the cash until searches are done. So should you avoid properties which also on the market as well? Gazumped selling direct to a vendor. So I'm guessing buying direct from a vendor. So you're buying property direct from a vendor and you're concerned somebody else might come along and pay more and you'd get gazumped, and you can't really pay until all your searches and everything are done. So if that's the question you're asking, which I think it is, and then there's many different ways you can use to protect yourself and protect the deal. One of them is to sign out some kind of lockout agreement where the seller signs an agreement with you, which means that they're in an agreement with you to sell the property to you. You can take it a step further to have a much more solid agreement, such as an option contract, which means now you've got the right to buy, but you're not obligated, and they have to sell to you and they can't sell to anybody else. And if you want to take a step further again, just to make sure it's much more watertight, because of course it depends on the value of the deal as well and how important it is to you, because the cost of doing these starts increasing as you're going through these different routes. One of the other things you can do is do a conditional exchange of contracts. And most listers understand exchange of contracts. That's how normal conveyancing works. You exchange, both sides are committed at that point. The way the rules work in England in terms of how we buy property, you put an offer in on a property, you say, hey, yes, I want to buy this. And they say, great, we want to sell it to you. And hey, everyone's happy. But, it can take weeks and weeks and months before you reach the point of completion. And until you get to that point where you've exchanged contracts just before completion, anybody can pull out. The seller can pull out, you can pull out as the buyer, because nobody's legally obligated at that point, up until that point, to continue the contract. So this is where it's a bit wobbly, it's a bit risky, where you're rushing to be able to purchase a transaction, complete a transaction, because you're getting a great deal. But what if they change their mind? They don't sell to you, they sell to somebody else comes along and offers more money, as in the case of Catherine just asking now. So if you exchange contracts, and then what will happen is the seller and the buyer solicitors will know that everyone's committed and locked into this agreement. Now, the great thing is that means the sellers can't back out. But you also have to remember at this stage, you are now locked in to purchase that property. So why don't we do that right from the offset? Well, the reason we don't do that is because we don't have all the information just yet. We don't have necessarily the contract. We haven't done all the searches. We haven't raised any inquiries. So we haven't got all the information together to understand enough about the property to be able to exchange contracts. For example, there might be a survey you need to do to make sure the property structure is sound. So when you exchange contracts, what you do is you do a conditional exchange of contracts. So what that means is you're saying, yes, I'm committing to buy your property. The seller's committing to sell to you. However, your commitment is subject to your searches coming through or without any issues, your survey being successful without there being any issues. So you attach conditions to the exchange of contract, which means it leaves a door open for you to be able to get out of just in case there's a problem and you don't want to proceed, but your seller's locked into you, and that will protect the deal for you. So I hope that helps. There's many creative ways like this you can make money. It's just about understanding the techniques that people can use to protect your deal. So our next question is from Faris on LinkedIn. Hi Saj, for HMOs, is it best to use specialist workers, electrician builders that are aware of the government HMO guidance? I've read the guidance, but there's lots to take in with fine details. Faris, this is a really great point. When it comes to HMOs, first of all, there's many different types of HMOs. The basics are very similar in terms of fire doors, emergency lighting, etc., but there's finer details in terms of how that house is used. As I said, there's many different categories of HMOs, and getting the specification right, just from the compliance point of view, can be quite different. So for example, if somebody's completed a student HMO, that might be different to one that's used for social housing, which might be different to one like professional lets, for example, what we do. So the specifications aren't exactly necessarily the same when it comes to the compliance side of the property. Then apart from the compliance side, you have to think about their experience in creating the environment that you're trying to create. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing this about 10 years, HMOs, and what we've done, when I look at my very first HMO to where we are right now, they are miles apart. They are completely different from what they used to be to what they are right now in terms of their appearance, their desirability, right down to, little things like light switches being put next to the bedside table, the way we've seen the Wi-Fi, TVs in the rooms. There's so many little things that we've learned, and we learn from each project and take on to the next one and improve that every time as well. And we've done, lots and lots of these deals, and each time we try and improve what we're doing. So there's those two things to consider. One is the experience of creating a property that's going to be a right fit for the type of tenant, from a desirability point of view. Then the other side is from the compliance point of view as well, making sure that it ticks all the boxes, for example, from your licensing and planning and building regs point of view as well. So there's a two-sided things that you need to consider. So if you've got somebody who understands at least the very basics or fundamentals of how these things work, then you're going to be in a better position to be able to build from that. If they're brand new, then there's going to be a little bit of a learning exercise you're going to have to go through, and hopefully try and avoid mistakes, because they can be quite costly in terms of how you're doing these. So for example, just sound insulation, whether you do or you don't need to do sound insulation within the house, that can add significant costs to your project. So if you've got somebody that's experienced, not just in doing one or two, but having done lots of these, and also of the type that you're trying to create, then you're going to be in a safer position. Otherwise, you are going to have a bit of a learning curve. So Forrest, I hope that helps. Hope that answers your question for you. So the next question is again from Instagram. So thank you so much on Instagram. We're watching just on this side over here. So this is Al-Razin. I think, my apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly. Sunday Times said the property prices will drop and won't recover until 2022. What's your view on this? Hey, look, everybody's got a view. Everybody's got an opinion about what's going to happen to house prices. Some people think they're going to go up. Some people are going to go down. Some people are going to go flatlined. But here's the thing. If you're moving a little bit closer, I'm going to tell you what's really going to happen. Move closer. Nobody actually knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen, because we can't predict the future. We can have an opinion. We can think it's going to go up. We think it's going to go down. We think it's going to flat, but we don't know. We can base it on our experience, our understanding. We say, we think this is what's going to happen. We think this is going to go. And also you've got to think about the agenda of the people reporting this, which, I think is really important. Newspapers want to sell papers, they want to kind of be more sensational in terms of information. And, Sunday Times quite a respectful newspaper in terms of their data. I'm not knocking them in terms of their views. But look, they say even a faulty clock, that stopped is correct twice a day. Yeah, in terms of telling the time. Because, sometimes people can be right. Other times they might be wrong because they're just guessing. Nobody really knows. I can share with you my view, what I think is going to happen. Earlier in the year, if we were speaking, say in July, August, I was talking about, I think the market's going to slow down quite considerably. I think by November, we're going to start seeing a significant slowdown and possibly even a crash. That was my viewpoint a few months ago. And the reason for that was because the furlough schemes were coming to an end. There's going to be a massive increase in unemployment all of a sudden. And the way the market's going, things are going to start slowing down, and lenders are starting to pull back on products as well. However, things have changed, things have evolved, and this is mostly driven by the government and their actions. So, for example, furlough scheme being extended, you've got a huge amount of support that's gone into the economy, your CBILS loans, your bounce back loans, other grants and support as well. You've got stamp duty holiday as well. You've got the government talking about 95% mortgages potentially for first-time buyers. All these things are going to stimulate the market. They realize the importance of the property market, the government do, and the value of those transactions, how many people it affects in the economy. So they're doing everything they can, I believe, to keep the market moving along. So what I think will happen in 2021 is we won't have a massive crash. We're not going to fall off a cliff. Prices aren't going to collapse. However, we'll start seeing a significant and visible slowdown. So that means at the moment where there's all this accelerated growth going on, prices are rising quickly, lots of interest. Most of this is because there's a very limited supply of stock and there's this demand for property. And soon as you start seeing in the news various slowdown, unemployment starts to rise, people start thinking twice about spending money, and there'll be less buyers looking to buy property. There'll be people losing their jobs. Repossessions will start to rise again. When we start seeing all these things, the market will then start to slow down. So that's my view. That's what I think will happen. I don't really know what's going to go beyond that because there's so many variables to take into consideration, and the government can stimulate the market in many ways. They can speed it up. They can slow it down. So, for example, right now, there's a drive to try and get transaction completed before the end of March so they can get the stamp duty discount, if you like. However, it's very easy to be able to get to March and for the government to say, well, actually, this has been such a success, we're going to extend it for another few months just to kind of keep the market going. So it's easy for the government to manipulate the market the way they want to, depending on what it is they're trying to achieve. So should we take our next question? This is on YouTube, is Rahi. What's the easiest way to find tenants as soon as possible? Thanks. So this really just depends on the type of tenants that you're looking for, Rahi. So for, the most common way is the biggest platforms. Where are people looking? People looking on Rightmove, Zoopla. These are the two biggest platforms. There's many other ones as well, but this is where the vast majority of people are, say, looking for property, whether it's buying or whether they're looking for a home. And of course, there'll be some markets where you'll find that they're not necessarily looking there. So for instance, if you have a student property, they're probably not going to be looking at Rightmove. There's other specialist platforms they can be looking for there. If someone's looking for a room, for example, a professional house share for what we do, it's not really Rightmove and Zoopla where our source of tenant comes from. A lot of it comes from Spare Room. That tends to be the key portal for us. And then, for instance, you'll also have a big market of people that aren't, say, the likes of Gumtree, where they're looking for rooms, and also Facebook Marketplace and places like this as well. So there's many, many different platforms. The first thing to do is think about who it is that you're trying to find as a potential tenant, and then think about which platforms are the ones that they're on. And of course, there's lots of letting agents that can help you. There's some very good ones, and there's some absolutely awful ones as well. So, you want to vet out and pick a good agent to help you as well. And if you've got a good agent on board, they should be able to help you find tenant quite quickly. And right now, the letting market's really strong. It's really buoyant. We're involved in a couple of letting agencies. We see the market's really strong right now. So you really shouldn't have any difficulty, particularly if it's a whole house or an apartment you're letting. So I hope that helps. Remember, I'm here every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m., really sharing my knowledge and experience to help you get further faster. If you're interested in learning more about working with me, ping me a message. There's two ways we can do that. Either you can invest with me in terms of funds in a project, or alternatively, if you're looking to learn this, to do this for yourself, reach out and I'll talk about how we can help you through mentoring as well, and really making 2021 an amazing year for you, and hopefully the best year yet. So thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate taking the time out to do this. And I look forward to seeing you again next Monday here at 8:30 p.m.